Hi everybody of the vinyl community, John here again. I'd like to wish everybody a happy new year. 2022 has got here finally, and I'm going to jump on this vinyl tag that Rob Walker has kindly put together, and let's get started, shall we? So, favourite album of last year. I bought a lot of records last year, and although many of them were really good, I find it hard to kind of put my finger on one. But there's an obvious one that did come out. I know that other people have held up this one and said that it was a great one from last year, so I kind of agree with it. This is Augusta's most recent album. They're a Swedish band, progressive rock, 2 tracks on here. So that's the answer to my first question. Give this a try if you don't know it. Really good. Show a record from an artist that I first saw live. First band I saw live was Depeche Mode, and it was on this particular tour that I saw them, the Black Celebration tour. Really good album. A friend of mine who was a big fan of Depeche Mode. I wasn't particularly a fan of Depeche Mode, but he and I were good friends, and we went into London. I suppose we must have been about 16, 17, I suppose, and went into Wembley Arena, I think it was, and watched the concert. It was mind-blowing because, you know, the volume, the sound in this place, the lights, it was incredible. So, really good experience that was. Next question. Show a duo. Tears for Fears. And this is their second album. It's got Shout on it, and The Working Hours, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, and many other tracks. There you go. That's my duo. Show an album still sealed or in the shrink. I've just taken this out of the delivery box. If anyone remembers my last year's tag, 2021 vinyl tag, there was a question about records that I was going to pursue in the next year, and this is the one I think I said I was wanting to get hold of, or at least it was I wanted to get a newer copy of the album, The Man Who Sold the World. The copy that I have, the RCA issue, is sounds very sort of muted and muffled, and I've never really understood, is that album the way it is because it's meant to sound like that, or is it just my particular copy? And in the video last year, I put it out there. People give me advice on which issue to get, and this was the one that most people advised me to look into. So yeah, I haven't even listened to it yet. It's still in the shrink, but I shall do that and probably talk about it in a later video. Show a concept album. You know, I listen to a lot of prog, and it would be easier for me to pull out, you know, I don't know, The Wall or something like that, but I thought I'd go for something that Rob Walker himself might like and would probably most be familiar with. Now, this is Setting Suns by The Jam. On some lists this appears as being a concept album. And I've also read that Paul Weller's, you know, slightly not ashamed but a little bit embarrassed about producing a concept album, where even if it's quite a loose concept album, in the sort of the time of raucous punk and things like that. But I don't know, I haven't spoken to the man obviously, but I suspect that, you know, he's always had an ear cocked towards the Kinks, and the Kinks are, you know, renowned for concept albums, and Small Faces too. I know that he's a big fan of Small Faces and Steve Marriott, and hey, another record I've got just recently is the Nut Gone Flake album, which is a concept album. So I don't know really what Paul Weller's view of concept albums are, but I doubt he's ashamed of them. Anyway, this is a very good record. Right, an album I haven't listened to yet. Now I've got a lot of albums by one particular artist, and I've never listened to these before. There's a big wodge there, as Graham would say. And well, that artist is Leonard Cohen. Why have I got these records? Well, he obviously made a lot of records because, and he died, didn't he, in recent years. But and I've picked up a lot of them purely because they come my way. And when he died, I thought to myself, well, maybe I should, grab these whenever they come. Most of these have come my way, and I haven't even paid for them. They're just ones that people have given away or whatever. And I still haven't listened to him. I understand it's a little bit of a, I don't know, his records are a little bit downbeat, aren't they? They're a bit sort of melancholy, and I'm not always prepared to get into that side of music. So there you go, some records. Discovery from last year. Made lots of discoveries last year, getting into all this prog and really delving deep into the cutting edge of Scandi Skulks prog. This is a Finnish band called Malady. This is a beautiful record. Had a lot of enjoyment from this last year, and I probably still will continue to enjoy it a lot because it's such a great record, sung beautifully in Finnish, lots of beautiful mellotron, great stuff. A live record. I'm going to hold up this is the Stranglers, all live and all of the night. It's kind of like a bit of greatest hits as well, really, because it's got all the, like, No More Heroes on it. It's got Down in the Sewer, Always the Sun, Golden Brown. Yeah, it's got all those ones that most people know. Don't think it's got Peaches on it though, but just about every other hit that they did. Record from a different continent. I thought about this, and just looking around, I've got a stack of records over there that, just ones that I don't plan to keep, the ones that maybe I've picked up, listened to, decided it's not really for me, and I'll probably, sell them in a car boot sale or something like that. But anyway, this sat on the top, winking at me when I read that question, so I thought, well, that's got to be a good one. So this is a record from the Solomon Islands. And for those that don't know where the Solomon Islands are, they are northeast of Australia, so they're part of that sort of huge big archipelago in that part of the world, and technically the continent is called Australia. It's not just the country Australia, but the islands, including New Zealand and the other islands around that way. So this comes from a different continent. It's on, surprisingly, it's on a label called Viking. But it's made in New Zealand. So there you go. So this, it's basically sort of music made by the people that live on the Solomon Islands. Sort of folk music, sort of world music type thing. It's interesting. I just don't think I'm ever going to have reason to play it. So I don't really feel I need to. Next question, a record with a price sticker still on it. I'm going to hold up this one. This is a double comp of the Pretty Things, greatest hits 64 to 67, and as you can see, it's got a price sticker there. Double value, 2 LPs for the price of one, £2.85. So I assume that was what it cost when somebody bought this out of the record shop. Lovely album. If you can get hold of that, do. It's a really good compilation. I think I paid £1 for it when I bought it at a charity shop. But, Its original cost apparently was £2.85. Show a punk or new wave album. This one's got a bit of writing on it. It's a band called Tudor, and yeah, they're a little bit of an unusual band, I suppose. This chap, which one is he? I'm not sure which one he is. I think it's this one here. He sung actually a song, Who Killed Bambi, that the Sex Pistols did. And yeah, the lyrics just go, who killed Bambi, who killed Bambi. On this there's a single called, what was it called now? Let the Four Winds Blow, I think that's what it was. A lot of people said that it was like a poor man's Adamant. I wouldn't like to speculate. I see what they mean, but I don't think that's his intentions. But no, there you go. That's my punk record that I'm going to show. Oh, it's on Stiff Records too. Came out in 1981. Unusual Stiff label. There we go. There's one question on this list I'm going to struggle with, and that is box set. I don't really collect box sets. I've got a few box sets around me of things, but they're just ones that I've shown several times on similar questions, on similar tags. You know, I've got Jesus Christ Superstar in a box set. I've got, you know, some CD box sets. There's no point me showing them anymore. Show an album with a sporting theme. This is my attempt at that. This is Flesh and Blood by Roxy Music. Some pretty young ladies with javelins. And there you go. Jazz album. I chose to show this one. This is Louis Prima. I picked this one up in America, so I thought about this as another record from a different continent. I used to live in California, and I used to love going around to these huge, great big thrift stores, the size of, you know, huge, great big supermarkets that they have there. And there was one in Sacramento that I used to like going to. I used to drop my kids off to school, stop off every other day at these different places and pick up records on the way home. You know, I'd find stuff like this. I paid 50 cents for this, you know, like $0.50. And I guess it was just that time, just before the vinyl was starting to sort of become popular with the kids. And it was, yeah, it was stacked on a aluminium shelf amongst all sorts of other rubbish. And yeah, I bought 2 or 3 of them, and this was sealed. It was sealed. It had never been played, and it's a great album. It's got, you know, That Old Black Magic, Buonasera, Just a Gigolo, I Ain't Got No Body. For anyone that doesn't know, so Louis Prima, he's the guy that basically is King Louis in the Jungle Book. The whole character is basically based on him, and he sings and songs and he voices the character in the animation. Really, really good. Recommend it. Now, the next record to show is a best of collection. I could have chosen, you know, all sorts of, you know, best of, I don't know, whoever, and I thought I'd go for this one. This is a compilation called The Most Collection, Volume 1. So it's a collection, not necessarily of an artist, although he was an artist, but Mickey Most as the record producer. But he's famous for basically, yeah, also producing other people's work at a later date. So you've got Little Games by the Yardbirds. There's Jailhouse Rock, performed by Rod Stewart. Hi Ho Silver Lining by Jeff Beck. Who else we got? Oh, The House of the Rising Sun is on here as well. He produced that apparently. Tap Turns on the Water, CCS. A Whole Lot of Love, which was, yeah, the theme song for, well, it's a Led Zeppelin song, isn't it? But this version was the theme song for Top of the Pops. So there you go, there's my best of compilation record. Most of most. An album cover with more than 8 people on the front, or 8 or more people on the front. I'm going to go for this one. There's No Place Like America Today. The cover's based on quite a famous picture. Yeah, this is I remember this being held up when I was studying art and design as a good example of juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is a sort of a technique, or a technique, I suppose, that you can use by putting things next to each other that apparently have no relation to each other, but just because of their proximity, they give like a third message, if you like. So here you've got a billboard advertising, how great America is, white people in the car going on holiday, and yet here in front of the billboard you've got a line of people of colour. I think they must be Americans, African Americans, lining up. I should suspect that this was probably during the Depression or shortly after. People lining up in a sort of, I think that's supposed to be some sort of a food bank. It's quite a famous photograph, and this is based on that. So there you go. And how many is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 if you count this guy at the front. So there you go. There was a few records that I thought I could use for that question, but that's the one that I went with. Now, soundtrack. It's a good one. Clockwork Orange. Soundtrack to the film, Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange. What can I tell you about this? It's a good film. It was banned in Great Britain for a long time. I remember when I moved over to Sweden in the early 90s, it was still banned in Britain, so I hadn't been able to see it. My Swedish girlfriend at the time bought me a copy while we lived in Stockholm, and gave it to me. Anyway, so here I've got the soundtrack, and it's pretty much a lot of this sort of classical music played on, I think, Moogs, mini Moogs. Show some VCLT. I got quite a lot of VCLT this year from people. Sean Whelan sent me some things. Who else? James Griffiths did. I'm sure others have too. But somebody else that has sent me, I think 2 or 3 times now, VCLT is Pete from the West Coast, and he had a video where he was basically sort of highlighting some records that he was planning on getting rid of, or that he wasn't planning on keeping, and asked if anyone was interested. So I said, yeah, I'd quite like to have that Albert Collins one that you showed. Don't really know why he didn't want to hang on to it, but I'm glad that he didn't, because he sent it to me very nicely, and it's a beautiful record, lovely label, and I've been quite enjoying it. Albert Collins, he I don't know much about him, but he did some work together with Gary Moore, I'm sure. I can't remember when, but I'm sure they did a tour together or something like that. He's a sort of blues rock guitarist. He's got his own sort of very distinctive style. So no, that's great. So there's an album with no writing on the cover. Quite a lot of those. If you look, here is one that I'm going to show. This is Prince, Paisley Park. No writing on it. Yet it's also got quite a lot of people on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. About 14 or 15 people on here. They're illustrated. I did think about using this as my 8 people or more cover, but instead I decided to go for the no writing on the cover. It hasn't even got any writing on the spine. So there you go. Cover with no writing. 7-inch single. Now this is a pretty cool find this year. Testament to how great it can be to get records off the free cycle. Now there was an ad on the free cycle. A man had a couple of boxes of records, and give away free. I was fortunate enough to get in there quickly and said to him I would be very happy to take those from you. So he contacted me and said, okay, well, you need to collect them from an auction house. Now, he didn't say this, but what I'm assuming is that he had sold a lot of stuff at an auction, you know, maybe he had like a house clearance or something, and maybe these records just didn't sell for whatever reason, I don't know why. He had these records, and yeah, he didn't want to keep them, so he was just going to give them away to whoever wanted them. So I turned up at this auction house and took them away. Now, it was a lot of classicals, 2 cardboard boxes full of records. I'd say most of it was classical and most of it was not really anything I was going to keep. It was in really good condition. You know, whoever had these records before, you know, they looked after them, so they were very nice, clean, well taken care of records. There's a few other bits and pieces in there. I'll show them at a later date. But and there was one single, and I think it was this, and I thought, well, that's unusual. It's by a band called Pressure Point. And there's the back of the single. I'd never heard of them. I actually searched a little bit to find out who they are. Here's the A side, a track called Big Deal, and the B side is called Straight to the Point. And it's actually a self-published single here in Wales by this band Pressure Point, and they didn't make many of them, and it's actually highly collectible. Turns out if you want to buy a good copy of this on Discogs, it's going to cost you 200 quid, and I found it, you know, kicking about in a box of free records that nobody wanted. Not really to my taste, this type of music. I'm going to hang on to it because I collect records, and maybe you know, maybe I'll grow to like it. But it's sort of a, what do you say, sort of, well, it's kind of a bit reggae, disco-y, kind of dance pop music type thing. Maybe some coloured vinyl. This is a record I've shown before. It's the Folklords. It's a 12-inch single. A song called 25 Years, and it's on grey. It's one of my earliest, one of my first coloured vinyls, actually. So the Hawklords, they are sort of a subsidiary of Hawkwind, and yeah, they sort of take on a bit more of a sort of punk rock style in this music, rather than what they were sort of doing with this space rock. But there you go, coloured vinyl. So everybody, hope you enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun to do. Thanks so much, Rob, again for doing this. Check out my next video. Thanks. Bye.